linchpin, I think, for the whole thing becoming this sort of like episodic web series was the desire to lift up the industry and make each restaurant feel like this is our thing. We're not being held up against any other restaurants and their ideals. This is just our thing.
Welcome to the Lone Star Play Podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Scott Armstrong. Join me and a famous guest. We discuss their career, life, food, Texas, and everything in between. Let's get started. Hi guys, welcome to another episode of the Lone Star Play Podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Scott Armstrong. Okay, wow. You know, after our last couple episodes that were just amazing, right, with the documentaries, we continue. This is more local. This is very close to my heart, to be honest with you. There's a series called ReOpen, okay? You can go to reopendoc.com, so ReOpenDoc.com. You'll find this phenomenal documentary series, okay, about, you know, places in America, but most of them are in Texas and specifically Austin, that are, you know, struggling during the COVID. And some of these were filmed quite a while ago, the beginning of COVID, you know, just different time periods. That's what's great about it. So just a phenomenal glimpse into what a lot of these places were going through, but just so well made and just long enough to, you know, digest, right? These are not long form. So I'm going to read you a little something from the website so you have a little bit of an idea what this is. So ReOpen is a short format documentary series that gives viewers a window into the difficult decisions that restaurant chefs and owners are making every day to try to provide hospitality, keep diners safe, and save their businesses during a global pandemic. Each episode focuses on a different restaurant, how they've survived during the shutdown, their thoughts on the government's response to the pandemic, and where they go from here. Boom. I guess I should have started with that. So what I'm going to do is play a little clip trailer from the documentary here, and then we'll have a word from our sponsor, as always, Texas Real Food, and then we'll jump into the interview with the director who I had on. So his name is Christian Remde. Hope I'm saying that right. I'm pretty sure I am. Great guy, great history. So we talk, you know, what this guy has done, you know, before all this. He's got a great history in the industry and just a phenomenal director, and just, you know, he's done a lot, and really just happy that he gave a voice, you know, to what I would call the voiceless in a lot of ways. So again, great interview. Really enjoyed it. Great documentary series. Check it out. But here's a little bit of something from the series.
I feel like this whole thing is just kind of weighing on me all the time, you know?
The first industry to be singled out of all industries was the restaurant industry.
The mixed messaging at the state level has been the most problematic. Wear a mask, don't wear a mask.
We realized that we were not being safe enough.
The idea of safety in that moment is a total joke.
Anybody running a restaurant or bar or a club or whatever, they don't really sign up for this kind of thing.
Restaurant industry workers were a level of first responders because when things were fully closed down, restaurants still had to stay open in order to feed the community.
The numbers, the way that Texas is going at the moment, is pretty clear cut that we haven't done it right.
And I can't help but feel like we missed the opportunity as a country.
Is a restaurant's function in society the same?
We need connection more than ever.
We have the opportunity to just start from scratch.
When the first tickets started coming in, it's been months since I've heard the printer go off and tell me, hey, cook this food. Someone's gonna eat it, someone's gonna pay for it.
The world is different. For how long, I don't know, but it is.
I want to save my business. I don't want to be defeated by a pandemic.
All right, guys, hope you enjoyed that. That was great, right? So we'll get to the interview here real shortly with Christian. Before we do that, let's go to texasrealfood.com, who is our sponsor. That's a great website directory, and what we're going to do is just boom, that's what we're going to do. I'm going to put in my zip code, and we're just going to pull up the places around and just see. We're live doing this, okay? And you can also just select a city if you live in a major city. So Austin, Dallas, El Paso, Fort Worth, Houston, San Antonio. You can do it that way. So, all right, here we go. Let's see here. Boom, put in my zip code. I'm not going to tell you my zip code, but I'm in Austin. All right, boom, brings up some different categories: farms and ranches, bakeries, butchers, cideries. Did I say that right? Craft breweries, distilleries, artisan food producers. Look, there's so much. Farmers markets. Okay, farm stays, fish and seafood, food trucks, restaurants. Look at all these categories: stores, wineries, all kinds of stuff, guys. Man, this is cool. Look at this: farms and ranch, Boggy Creek Farm, Eden East. This is cool, man. See, and look, you can sign up, create a little membership. Save some stuff, that sort of thing. Again, there's a lot of other resources, recipes. It's just a great site to be a part of, to be honest with you, regardless that they sponsor this podcast and produce it. It's a great site. It really is. So just some great listings here, guys. Oh man, look at this: Lost Pines Yompan Tea. Ooh, yeah, that looks. Get out here. Yeah, again, just some great stuff. You just pick, what you want, and brings it up. I'm gonna click on the food trucks. Right? Yeah, that's cool. So, all right, guys, let's get to the episode. What do you think? Sounds good, right? All right, let's do it. So again, Christian Remde with ReOpen documentary. Phenomenal interview. Here we go. Enjoy. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about how you got into sort of video production. I don't know what's the word I would use. Is that the right word? Video production? Or
yeah, well, I think I started out like a lot of people who are in this industry who are around my age. I saw Star Wars. That's honestly that's what got me into it. Like I was 6 years old sitting in a theater, and I thought, oh my God, I want to go out into space and make movies. That sounds like the coolest thing ever. And then of course, you realize, there's sound stages and there's, special effects and stuff like that.
Is this how they did the moon landing? Right. You're thinking, yeah, right.
Right. But that's really how it all started with Star Wars.
That's awesome. If you don't mind me asking, how old are you? I'm 41.
No, I just turned 48.
48. Okay. Boom. My brother's age.
Yeah. And as I grew up and I started getting into film and movies, and for a while I really wanted to go into special effects, and then I started learning more about directing and writing, and that kind of became more of my focus. And one of my favorite movies is Lawrence of Arabia, and
oh wow, yeah,
David Lean, who directed Lawrence of Arabia, started out as an editor, and he always talked about how being an editor first makes you a much better director, because you go into it with, thinking like, here's what I need, here's what I know I'm going to need in the edit room in order to make this scene work.
Yeah.
In order to tell the story, I'm
sort of reverse engineering, if you will.
Exactly. Yeah. And for the way my brain works, that kind of worked really well for me. And so I decided to go into editing as a way to make myself a better director. And so I spent a lot of time just learning editing techniques and learning how to edit digitally. When I first started doing that, digital editing was sort of in its very infancy, like the Avid, the Media 100, things like that, just before Final Cut Pro, before any of that. And so I got into doing that. I found a production company who was wanting to buy a digital editing system, and I convinced them to buy it and let me run it. And so I learned how to use it and started editing commercials and music videos and just everything, all this kind of stuff. And slowly kind of worked my way up and edited, started editing short films and feature films and documentaries and all this stuff. And then kind of decided, I got to a point where I felt comfortable enough where I said, I'm going to make the jump and become a director. And so I made my first short film. I was living in New York City at the time, and it did well.
Is that the wine bar, or is that it?
Yeah. Yeah. And it got into a bunch of film festivals, and it won a bunch of awards, and it really kind of, it made me feel like.
Did that feel good? Like your first one, right? You're like, yes.
Right out of the gate. But it really it made me feel good about kind of just, the path that I had taken had paid off.
It made sense, right? Like this is what I was meant to do. Yeah, I get it.
And so, yeah. And I kind of decided I'm going to become a director, and I started directing short films, and this was right around the time that DSLRs started shooting video, and you could use high quality lenses in a small kind of package, and it was affordable. And so I bought my first camera and decided I was going to learn how to shoot. And I just kind of it just sort of kind of kept evolving little by little. It kind of became, this thing where I would just sort of take the next step, and that would work out, and I would take the next step, and that would work out.
That's awesome.
And I met my wife in New York. We got married there, and we realized we wanted to buy a house and have a kid and kind of do all that stuff. And doing that in New York City is just, it's a real hassle, unless you want to move to New Jersey, which and so my wife graduated from law school at UT. So she had lived here for a few years, and I had been to Austin a few times for South by and the Austin Film Festival and stuff like that. And so we kind of looked around at a bunch of different places, but Austin really kind of felt like the best place for us to land. So we packed up, we moved down here, and right when we got here was when the culinary scene in Austin was really sort of beginning to take off. It was when Bryce Gilmore was doing amazing stuff. It was when Paul Key was doing amazing stuff. It was really kind of at that sort of really just jumping off.
What year would you say?
That was 2010.
2010. Okay.
Yeah. And so that was really kind of, there were already places here that were doing innovative things, but I feel like it was Austin kind of taking that next step. And really kind of raising the flag and saying hey, we're
here too, right? Yeah.
This is an important culinary scene. Everyone needs to come check this out. And it just kind of so happened that I've always been a foodie person. I love restaurants.
Well, you lived in New York City, right?
Yeah, exactly. My wife and we would go out all the time. Yeah. In New York City, you don't really cook at home very much because you don't really have a kitchen. You have barely a kitchen.
Yeah.
You don't have a dining room. So you eat out a lot. And so when we moved to Austin, we really took advantage of the incredible culinary scene here and really just kind of went out and ate the city. We really just kind of went nuts. And I really was I had always said if I didn't become a filmmaker, I would have gone to culinary school. That would have been the fallback for me.
Got it.
If film hadn't worked out, if I was a terrible filmmaker, then at least I feel like I'd be good at that. And so when I bought my first camera and when I did all of that, I thought, I really should go out and shoot stuff. I really should want to do stuff. And so I thought, well, I should make a documentary about chefs. That would be interesting because it would interest me.
Sure.
And so I hooked up with Bryce Gilmore, who still had the Odd Duck trailer was still going. And I really thought it was fascinating to me because he, food trucks were really big in Austin at the time. But food trucks are tough. Food truck, it's a tough place to be because you don't have, in a restaurant, you've got to walk in, you've got more storage, you've got more room to cook, you've got all this stuff. And all of that is shrunk down into this,
water, your connected water.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's a tough sell. And then I thought what was even more amazing was that Bryce was making it even harder on himself, because with the On Duck food trailer, he would only cook local. So all of the product that he cooked had to be local. So, when you've got a food truck, you tend to make a menu that is going to be easy to cook, based off of ingredients that you're going to be able to get. And it makes it a lot easier. But what Bryce was doing was saying, like, every week I'm going to go to the farmer's market, and whatever they've got, that's what I'm going to make a menu out of. And so it just was like that extra level of difficulty that I totally admired. I was like, wow, that's really, like, it's totally ballsy to do that. And so I was like, I really want to make something about him. And so I shot with him in that, and it was a live fire grill, and it was just like, so hot, so smoky. My eyes were just like dead every day after being in there. My camera, like my clothes, just everything reeked of smoke. But the documentary was awesome. Like, I really love that doc. It was like the first one I ever did, and I still love it.
That's awesome.
It's really great. It was just really, like, it was a great moment in
How long did it take you to shoot that, more or less?
I think it took about 4 or 5 days of shooting, and I shot with Bryce, and then I also interviewed one of the farmers that he works with, and I interviewed someone else here in town who's part of the local food scene. And so, I really kind of made this little documentary, and I had never made one before, and so I was just sort of like figuring it out as I went.
Sure.
But it was just really great, and I think it really captures this moment of, like, a little bit of innocence in Austin, in the food scene, like kind of before everyone descended on the city, and outside chefs started opening up restaurants here, and it sort of blew up. That was probably 2 or 3 years later, but at that moment it was still sort of very innocent and very kind of calm and nice. And
that's true.
Yeah, and so and that's kind of how it got started. And honestly, like, I really lucked out, because as I was making that documentary, Bryce was named one of Food and Wine's best new chefs. And so right as the documentary was being finished, people were super interested in it all of a sudden. People
It's
were like,
relevant. All of a sudden it's trending and relevant. Yeah.
And so Food and Wine picked it up. They put it on their website and Huffington Post. And,
oh my God.
And it was like,
awesome.
And so for me, I was really like, oh my God, this is amazing. And so I was like, I want to make another one. So I hooked up with there was a husband and wife team, the Kasuriks here in town, who had a charcuterie business. And I love charcuterie. I love anything cured meats and all of that.
Yeah, me too.
Absolutely. So I was like, I want to make a documentary about charcuterie, and I want to use them as the voice of the documentary, talking about the history and how it's made and why things are done and all of that. And I kind of lucked out there too, because right at that moment, charcuterie was becoming a big deal nationwide. And so I think off of the success of the first documentary plus interest in charcuterie, like New York Times picked it up, like a bunch of places picked it up and started showing it. And then I kind of became just the food guy, people started getting in touch with me being like, hey, can you come make a documentary about us, and we'll pay you to shoot this and we'll pay you to do that. And it just sort of like became this thing where I only started doing it because I love food and it interests me. And, there's nothing better than making a documentary about something that you have a real interest in, because you're learning about it, along with the audience. And so, but getting to do that was remarkable. And that really opened up so many doors for me to be able to start working with food brands, and then because culinary tourism became a big thing, I started working with a lot of tourism boards.
Oh, wow.
And, I got to work with the Hong Kong tourism board.
That's awesome.
We've had a long relationship with them, and they bring us out to Hong Kong with a bunch of chefs, and we shoot, just a ton of pieces, and they'd all go all over the place. And
anything like Spain or Mexico?
No, I haven't done. I really wanted to do Spain. We reached out to to their tourism board, but we never had any luck. I think we may have talked to them.
It's probably sitting still in their inbox. The Spanish, they're just, my wife's from Spain. I lived there for a few years. They're just they're slow to get to things
Well,
sometimes.
you gotta have that siesta. Midday.
Tranquilo. That's what they tell you. Tranquilo.
Yeah, I get it. Like
I loved it. I loved it too. Yeah. Absolutely. In fact, we brought the lifestyle here. Like, I live that same lifestyle that I learned over there here. I still live it. I still eat dinner at the same late time. I still take that nap at midday. My lunch is late, like compared to here, right? 3 p.m. lunch. And we're talking a 10 p.m. dinner, 11 p.m.
Yeah.
Normal,
and
right?
Sangria. Gotta have the sangria.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I had a food truck here in Austin, man. Actually, that did Spanish food. That's why I moved here.
Oh, you kidding?
It was called Boca. You might have heard of it. I was on Rainy Street for a while. It was 2014 to 2019. So just last year. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I can relate to all the food truck stuff and all that. Absolutely, man. It's a fucking nightmare
Spanish food is like one of my favorites.
It's the best. Where did you live? Where'd you live?
I lived on the Costa del Sol in Torremolinos, which is like right near like Malaga, Marbella.
Yeah. Like I lived in Granada. I lived in Andalusia too.
Yeah, I've been to Granada. It's beautiful. I love all of Spain. I was so lucky. I lived there for about 1.5 years and traveled all around, and it was just remarkable. The food and the culture and just the history of it.
Did you ever think about doing the Camino?
No, I didn't.
That's why I went there originally. I went there. I did the Camino, and once I was done with the Camino, I couldn't leave. I was like, I love this country so much. I mean, it was awesome.
Costa del Sol. I just, I had a motorcycle and.
Oh wow! Yeah, that's cool.
It was just the best ever.
Oh man!
You wake up at 11 o'clock and you go to the beach and you hang out at the beach. It's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous lifestyle.
It really is ridiculous, right? Yeah. Even when I worked, like I would tell, people, I would be working there in Spain and I'd be working there. Patrick, why you got a smile on your, they would always be mad at me that has a smile on my face sometimes because people don't smile all the time for no reason. Right. You got to have a reason to smile in Spain. But I'll just be smiling all the time. They're like, Patrick, dude, this ain't even work to me. We're on the beach. I mean, this is like the best. Right. It was like, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. Well, I hope that happens one day. It sounds like you definitely have a lot of experience there. If you were to go shoot and do something, it would be no problem for you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I would love to go shoot in Spain.
No, that's awesome, man. What an incredible journey you've had. I'm so happy for you that that success and turning an eye on an industry that's dear to my heart, man, and showcasing that and taking it seriously and showcasing it in a positive way is important because food gets shown in so many different ways, right? Food gets just plastered all over TV and shows, and you've got Chopped to Top Chef to this to Anthony Bourdain, right? And the what is it? The Great British Baking Show and shit like that, right? It's all food. It's all completely different, and it sort of builds relationships with food with people, right? And it's just such an interesting dynamic. So I'm more sensitive to how food is shown. If it's not shown with respect, I'm that can anger me sometimes. So you approach it, this ReOpen documentary, for instance, you just approach it with such a respect, man. And, anybody watching, first of all, even if you don't know anything about the industry, you really do get a nice inside look of what's happening, what they're going through. And just as a side note, visually, it's shot amazing. I mean, it's beautiful, gorgeous, the tones, the colors, the audio, the music, like everything that also pulls you in. Just as a side note, right? Like that also pulls you in and brings you into what's happening. So yeah, I got to say that it's I love that. So what steps, I guess, what led you to say, okay, I'm going to do this ReOpen thing and I'm going to, approach it from this angle. And I guess a second follow-up to that would be, did you have any other ideas to do that didn't pan out and this was the one, or this was the only idea, or what?
So in the 10 years that we've lived here, I've shot with so many chefs, so many restaurateurs in Austin, and I've become friends with a lot of them. And
that's awesome.
And it's been an incredible experience. And so when everything started happening last spring, when everything just, everybody was saying it's got to be shut down, nobody knew how long this was going to be. Nobody knew if it was going to be a couple months, if it was going to be a year, if it was going to be 2 years, whatever. And so for me, I had a ton of photos. I had done a whole video series called Small Bites, where these were just minute-long pieces shot at restaurants with a chef just kind of talking about their favorite dish that they make and the story behind it. And it was really
I saw some of those. Those were awesome. Yeah. Those are on your website, so go check that out, people. On his website, yes, for sure.
But those were I made those because I had really gotten tired of. I had been making a lot of, here's how to make something. Here's the steps. You take a cup of this and you put this in. You whisk it up. You do the thing. And I really wanted to talk about why people were making food, not how to make it. So I made those, and so I shot I think I had shot like 38, 39 of them or something like that. So I just started putting them out for restaurants that were pivoting immediately to doing curbside or takeout or anything like that. I just started reposting those, saying like, hey, go visit, these guys are open, go visit these guys. This is, they're doing, limited stuff or whatever. So anybody who I could see and talk to that were doing that, I just started posting those up and just started trying to like promote people however I could, pictures and everything like that. But slowly but surely, I kind of started running out of content, and a lot of places weren't reopening, or were finding it hard to pivot and stuff like that. And so
and some places were like closing in the hopes that, well, we'll just last this few weeks and then we'll reopen normal, right? And not even worry about this. Yeah.
And so after like a couple of months of the shutdown, the government said, okay, restaurants can reopen their dining rooms again. And it was, they said that they could reopen them with like a limited, a limited amount of people and everything.
Is it 25%, right? Didn't it do 25, 50, 75?
Yeah. 75 and then back down to 50 or back down to 25. It went back and forth a lot.
Totally.
But the thing was, sorry, I have to look at this really quick because sorry.
No worries.
So I thought to myself, you know what, this is an important part of this story, is these restaurants reopening, how they're doing it, why they're doing it, why some of them aren't doing it, and what they're doing instead in order to stay solvent. And so I knew, let's see here, who did I shoot? I shot with Kevin Fink at Hestia first. Kevin and I had shot together a few times, and I love his food, Emmer and Rye. And Hestia was Hestia was the last restaurant that my wife and I went to before the shutdown.
Oh, wow.
And it was one of the best meals we had ever had. It was remarkable. And so when I heard that they were going to reopen, I reached out and said, hey, listen, can I be there opening day? Can I just, without any sort of, I had no idea what it was going to be. I didn't know if it was going to be a series, if it was going to be a feature-length documentary, if it was going to be just a one-off thing I was going to do. I really didn't go into it with any sort of idea, a clear idea of what I was going to do. I just knew opening day was going to be important, and I wanted to be there for it.
Yeah.
And they said yes. So I went in, I shot the whole day with them. I interviewed Kevin. I stayed through service and did all of that. And at the same time, Fiore and Adam at Locadoro, I had been talking to them a lot, and they had told me they weren't going to reopen. And so I was like, well, that's interesting. I want to talk to them about that. So sure. I then shot with them for a day and was like, I interviewed them about why. They had already started up with Good Work Austin, starting to make meals for quarantine homeless and for the ASD caregivers and stuff like that. And so I just went in and shot with them and shot them doing that, and kind of to find out why they weren't reopening. And Eric is another person. Eric at the Peach Tortilla is another person who I've shot with a bunch. He and I were talking, and I said, "Well, what are you doing?" And he's like, "Well, we're doing this." And I was like, "Can I come in and shoot with you?" And so it just became this thing where, I started thinking like, oh, maybe this is like a feature-length documentary. Like maybe this is, an hour and a half of different restaurants doing different things and weaving the stories together. But the one thing I really wanted to be mindful of was I didn't want anyone to feel like their point of view was wrong, or that we were making any sort of judgment about whether you are opening or not opening, or what your policies are, or anything like that. And so I thought, if I merge the stories together, I don't want to cut from one person being like, yeah, we're opening up, we hope this goes great, to another person being like, we're not opening up, this is totally unsafe. Because right now,
interesting. Yeah.
I don't want to, there shouldn't be any infighting in the industry right now. Everyone should be coming together, regardless of what their point of view is. It's about healing this industry. It's about lifting it up. It's about all of that. And so I thought, you know what, I really should make these episodic, and every restaurant is just sort of its own bubble, its own self-contained piece, so that no one feels that we're making any sort of judgment about what they're doing. And so that was really the linchpin, I think, for the whole thing becoming this sort of like episodic web series, was the desire to lift up the industry and make each restaurant feel like this is our thing. We're not being held up against any other restaurants and their ideals. This is just our thing. And so then it became really easy to say, well, hey, can I would get in touch with the restaurants and say, hey, listen, this is what I'm doing. It takes me a day to shoot it, sometimes a day and a half if I feel like I need to come back and get some extra shots.
Yeah.
We'll do an interview. I'm going to come in and shoot. I'm going to come in early. I'm going to shoot all day with y'all. I'm going to get it. We're going to shoot through service, and then that's it. And pretty much everyone I reached out to was really, really happy to do it, just because I feel like everybody was looking for a way to tell their story. And
did anybody say no? I mean, you don't have to say who, if the name of the play, but did anybody say no?
Nobody said no. Some people just never got back to me, which I assume is just,
got lost. Could have been. Yeah, exactly. That's 100%.
And that's totally, that sure. is 100% valid. But yeah, I just, I feel like everybody had a story to tell, and everybody wanted to tell their story.
Because every place is different, right? Like every place, literally every single food business is different, whether it be a food truck, food trailer, restaurant, you're right. They're all going to be different. And what works for one does not necessarily work for another. And they do have their own unique story and steps of service and and a menu and distribution and sources of where they get their food and the blah, blah, blah. Right. There's just so many different variables that are unique.
And like some restaurants, like for example, we did an episode with ATX Cocina.
Yeah,
sort of they're a high-end, elevated kind of restaurant, and for them to come up with a menu that traveled was very difficult.
That's another thing people are not thinking about. Well, they'll just go to go or takeout. Listen, y'all, not every place can make their menu takeout or to go. I've worked for so many restaurants where we didn't even do that because there's too many components. You can't take that to go. Right. It's not going to travel well 45 minutes in a car by the time you get it. So, that hurdle that restaurants had to go through as well of stopping and essentially, like reorganizing everything. That also means you have to reorganize prep, the kitchen, the flow of how things are prepped, even like if you have that set up. So now everything starts to change. And God, it's absolutely amazing what they've gone through.
Yeah. And for me, I think the biggest takeaway from all of this, and the thing I think that was the most important for me, was that this industry, it's the hospitality industry, and every single person from back of house, front of house, everybody has always been it's been drilled into them from the very beginning. You always put on a smile. You always want to show your best side.
Sure.
You want to make sure that people who are coming in, whether that's dining in, sitting on the patio, picking up takeout, are greeted with a smile. Everything's going great. It's about them having a good time, all of that. And my biggest concern for the industry was, because of that, when people go in to dine in, sit on the patio, get takeout, what they're seeing are a group of happy, smiling people. And so it may be really easy to not think that these people are going through one of the toughest things that this industry has ever gone through.
The toughest, I mean, by far.
Because it's their 100%. Job to not let that show.
Sure.
So for me, this was really about creating kind of a safe space where they could talk about those things without it infringing on the hospitality that they want to give to the people who are coming into their restaurant.
Yeah. Wow.
And so for me, that was the most important thing, was getting the word out that this industry is struggling to the point where, like, you know, there are restaurants, big restaurants, not just mom and pop places that were kind of hanging on anyway, but big restaurants are closing right now because they just cannot sustain what's going on right now. And so if it meant that someone ordered in, you know, curbside pickup one extra night a week, or tipped a little more when they went in, or went on to a restaurant's website and bought a few gift cards without really expecting to use them at all.
Exactly.
It would be a win. You know, it would be like, okay, here's a way to sort of raise awareness of what's going on without it having to come from the people whose job it is to not let people know that this is going on. You know what I mean? And so that was really the goal with the series.
Love that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. No, I love that. You're right, because people don't get to give, you know, vent, if you will, right? Like that's a big part of the industry where things build up. I mean, that's such a big part of it, which is why there's a lot of mental stress in the industry, alcoholism, drug addiction. I could go through the list, family problems, divorces, right? Relationship building. I lived it. It's for so long. It's because of that, you this is such an intense industry. And then, right, you want to release at the end of the night, you build up all this stuff. And especially during a pandemic, right, you're trying to maintain this, hey, we're here for the community, we're doing everything right. But meanwhile, behind, right, through the kitchen door, it's like, holy shit, we are in the worst hole not even imaginable. It's worse than anything anybody could have ever imagined, right? It's just absolutely devastating.
And there's been so little help from the government.
Zero. I talk about on the podcast since we pivoted in March as well. It's been a major conversation on this podcast that gets brought up all the time. Since then, hasn't changed since March, right? It's like crazy. It's like, it really pisses me off because people, this is the thing. People are getting mad at restaurants. Well, just shut down, just close down. Listen, y'all, slow down. They want to close down, most of them. I guarantee you they have no issue. But the government's saying close down, but continue to pay rent, continue to pay your bills, continue to pay staff, continue to pay insurance, right? Continue to do everything else outgoing, but there's not going to be, we're going to limit your incoming revenue. Right. You can't do that. The government's got to say, here's this, now shut down. Otherwise, it's, of course, these restaurateurs are looking for ways they've got to look, you don't know what's behind them. They've got staff. It's a pyramid. They're at the top of that pyramid. So you're seeing the tip of the iceberg. There's a whole iceberg underneath them of stuff and responsibilities and people's homes. But we could go down the list of things. So that frustrates me. And that's why this series, dude, is so eye-opening and so wonderful and honestly inspiring, even though it's sad to watch it. It's inspiring at the same time. And you know what's one funny thing that I noticed is that, a lot of these I'm watching ones that came out, months and months ago. Right. You still watch it today. It feels like it was just shot yesterday.
That's
scary that nothing has changed since then.
Yeah, no, it really is. Yeah. It's frustrating. It's frustrating to watch. It's frustrating, I know, for these people. And there's so much heroism going on right now behind the scenes in restaurants of people who are doing everything they can to keep their staff employed, keep the lights on, keep and I think one of the episodes that really I love is the Sharon Mays from Baby Greens.
Yeah, I saw that one. Man, that woman, right? Staff to one.
Yeah, she and
busting her ass.
She should be running for city council, or she should be.
Love that.
The way she speaks is amazing, and just her knowledge is so deep on this stuff. What she talks about in that episode is about how restaurants really shoulder a lot of the load that society has on eating. And it's not just a matter of, there aren't enough grocery stores. If all the restaurants closed, there aren't enough grocery stores and there isn't enough infrastructure to feed everybody. Grocery stores operate under the assumption that people are going to be eating out.
Yeah.
And so there is that give and take. There's that balance. And without the restaurants open, you're going to start seeing runs on supermarkets. You're going to start seeing people fighting over the last avocado. Like, it's going to get to that point. And so, you have to have the restaurants in order for it all to work. That's the way our food infrastructure has been set up. And so when people aren't wearing masks or not being safe or holding these Corona parties and, getting together over the holidays, they're just extending the time it's going to take for these restaurants to be closed.
And not just restaurants, right? Bars and the live music venues, right? Like, that are just, it's crazy.
Movie theaters,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And so all of that is very, you're talking about just this time where it's just this, nobody's really taking it seriously. And so everybody's just sort of sitting around thinking, oh, it's going to end, or there's going to be a vaccine, or there's going to be a whatever. But in that time period, these restaurateurs, these owners from Baby Greens, which is a small place, it's a drive-through. I go there once or twice a week because I love it, but it's just right up on Anderson. It's a very small place, from a little small place like Baby Greens all the way through to I just saw Fabian Rossi just closed, which is like an Austin staple. Like, they've been around forever.
Yeah.
And and everything in between. These places are going to start closing, and it's not going to just be your favorite place that you went to for a fun night out with your wife or your girlfriend or whatever. It's going to be places that you rely on to grab lunch or to pick up a quick dinner for your family because you don't feel like cooking. It's going to be those places, and that's when it's really going to start hurting. And I think that is something that people aren't taking into consideration, is they just feel like, oh, these restaurants will be around, it'll be fine. The restaurants are going to be around. But I think when all is said and done and people are able to go out again, they're going to look around and be like, oh, that place is closed. Oh, that place is closed. Oh man, that place closed. Because it's just, nobody's taking it seriously enough.
Yeah. Well, 100%. Yeah, there's just so much I could say. I have very intense feelings about this stuff. You have no idea. It makes me livid. Really, it makes my blood boil when I really start to just think about what people are going through in the industry. And I think about, did somebody tell me? I didn't I got out of it last year in 2000, last South by. I didn't know a pandemic was coming, and I think, wow, what if I still had my shit going, my catering, my food truck? It would be a nightmare. I wouldn't. Oh, dude, I just wouldn't. It's just crazy. But the point you make about sort of the supplemental, right, aspect to the grocery store and the restaurants and the way that works together. You're absolutely right. But another thing too that I would add on to that is the infrastructure of a food business, whether it be catering or private chefing or restaurant or whatever you're doing, food truck, it's not just you. You've got this like, right? If you just turn to the side a little bit, oh shit, there's like 100 people behind him that rely on that, the distributor, the source, right, where you're getting your food. How about the people that create food for restaurants? They don't sell to grocery stores. They don't sell to, right? You've got all this back end of stuff that would just demolish the chain.
And that's 100% true. And one of the great things about Austin is it was at the forefront of the local food movement when I moved here. You know, and that ties back to the whole Bryce Gilmore thing and everything. Sure. Like, you know, local food became super popular in the United States in the like late 2000s, and Austin was a big reason for that. And so all of the restaurants in town, even like, you know, even up to when the pandemic hit, when you went in there, a lot of times on the menu, it would say, you know, sir, you know, these mushrooms are from these local farmers, and this beef is from this local ranch.
Exactly.
And all of that. And so many restaurants bought from small local farms here in Austin and the surrounding area. And it allowed for a great boom in these local farms, you know, over the last 4 or 5 years. But it also means that when all of those restaurants closed, none of those farms had any inroads into selling food to HEB or Whole
exactly.
Foods
or they hadn't set up that infrastructure, right? It's absolutely. They didn't have to.
They were doing just fine selling their produce, selling their beef, selling their protein or whatever to the restaurants.
Keep the operation small enough to exactly.
So all of those farms now we're scrambling, trying to figure out, well, how do we get rid of this whole crop that they just spent the last, I mean, this happened in the spring. So
I've had farmers on the show. I've had farmers on. I've had, it's devastating. Some of the farmers actually had some success stories. I'm not gonna lie.
Really? That's great.
Absolutely. Well, this is what it was interesting. I'm not gonna lie. Actually, the oldest ranch and farm in Texas. I had that guy at Parker Creek Ranch. So he came on, and this basically what he said. So what we're talking about, the lines to the restaurants is yes, they get severed, but now what's happening is people are reaching out to the farms because the grocery stores are getting overloaded. So people are reaching directly out to farms. How do I get your food? So now they're creating this delivery service that they never had before. And honestly, that him in particular, he's like, dude, my sales are up 1,000%.
That's awesome.
So I was like, whoa, okay. So maybe if the pivot is right, that this can still be, managed and saved. And you've got companies like, I had Sam Lash on from Farm to Table. So they work with they provide so much food to all the restaurants in town. I mean, shit, I used them when I had Boca. So, seeing that, having him on, same thing. We're going to have to really start doing deliveries direct to home, direct to consumer. Right. Yeah. And still sort of try to maintain somewhat of a relationship with these restaurants, because some of them are still going to open and do something minimal. So it's been crazy. It's just a free for all, right? It's just been like this free for all to figure out what to do. And there's been no leadership, no direction. Everyone's scrambling. Everyone's behind the scenes. Just, what are you doing? What, it's a nightmare. It's an absolute nightmare.
I feel so bad for all of just everyone in the industry. And it's not just restaurants. I mean, like you said, it's bars, it's venues, it's everybody. I mean, hospitality, hotels, it's just, everybody in the industry just got hammered so badly by this. And I would love to have seen leadership from the local or state or, I didn't have much hope for the federal, but
every level, right? It was like, ain't nobody gonna save us. No.
Nobody wanted to step up and be the person. And I think I think that is a problem that we have right now with leadership in general, is that there's just no leadership anymore. It's people trying to cover their own ass and get reelected, and they don't want to say anything or do anything that's going to make anybody mad. And so, the people who elect them, who expect them to lead, are being left out in the cold. And, unless you're a giant corporation who's able to get millions of dollars in PPE money, you're kind of
screwed.
Forgotten.
You're screwed.
And it's too bad.
Think about this. I'm watching the Franklin barbecue one, and because that's probably the most that one in particular. Franklin's probably has the most sales of any of those restaurants, probably, in my opinion. So to hear him, and he's considered, right, it's probably considered, arguably the best barbecue in the world. Okay. Yeah. So you hear him say, yeah, we're struggling. This is tough. Okay. Now put that in perspective. Think about so-and-so that you go to see down the street, that you love their tacos, right? And you go support them. Think about the reputation they have. Now I wonder if they're struggling. Yes, if Franklin's is struggling, right? This guy that's at the top of the mountain, imagine how everyone else is doing. So yeah, and it's crazy.
And that's the thing is, Aaron was so generous with his time, and
he's a great guy. He's great for Austin, and he's great for the food scene.
He is fantastic. And I'm lucky enough to know him, and and get to shoot with him sometimes. And but when
we need to get him on the show, I don't know why we haven't done that yet.
He's a great interview.
There's just what happens is not to sidetrack it, but there's just a million people to get on the show, and once the door opens, it's like you just get flooded, and then it just becomes like it's like crazy. So, but yes, we do need to get him on.
You should. He's great. But for him, I think the issue is, and again, it's that side of things that people don't see. Franklin, they have their restaurant, and they have the famous line, and people line up, and they go in and they eat, and the restaurant's ostensibly it's open from, I think, 11 o'clock till like 3.
Yeah. Which is barbecue, right? You sell to your out. I mean, that's typical.
So they're open for 4 hours a day.
Yeah. And
so that's the sort of public facing side of that business. But what people don't see is that a lot of times the restaurant is then reopened at night for private parties. And those happen during South by Southwest. They happen during ACL.
Yeah.
They happen during the Austin Film Festival or Formula One or any of the multitude of events that no longer happen in this city.
Yeah.
And so a humongous part of their
catering was like 2 times my regular food truck sales. Catering was everything. I mean, it was like massive.
And so the minute those private parties can't happen anymore, the minute that they don't have all of those people coming into town wanting to have corporate events there and stuff like that, they're losing just a huge amount of business. Now, the general public doesn't see that. General public sees, well, they're open. I can drive up and
exactly
put an order, and they'll bring it down to my car, so they must be doing fine.
Exactly.
But that side of their business keeps that open. Like, that's the base level of that business.
Yeah. There's way better. The profit margin in events is
there's no profit margin in that side of the business. Like that, and that's what he talks about in the episode is how,
that's why you do the catering and stuff, because those deals are great. I mean, you're just like, oh, this is awesome, right? Yes, 100%.
And I think, again, it's that thing of like, that's why I wanted to do this, to let people know, like, even though it may look like they're doing fine, because when you go pick up your barbecue, there's a huge line of cars because everybody wants to pick up their barbecue. That doesn't mean that that means that really what that means is that they are just barely surviving.
Yeah.
Like, even though it's busy and even though they're open, they're not making it's not, because they had been renting that building or leasing that building forever, and they bought it. And he talks about this in the episode. The first payment that they had to make on that building was in March when all of this happened. Can you imagine that? Like, and then that cannot have been an inexpensive building to buy, considering where it's located.
Oh, yeah.
And everything like
absolutely.
That must have been just an incredible outlay of cash. I'm just saying, like, there's all of these parts of the business that nobody thinks about. All they think about is, I'm showing up. There's a bunch of people. They're all buying barbecue, so they must be fine. Yeah. Or I'm going to pick up tacos at this place, and there's a bunch of other people picking up tacos, so they must be doing fine.
Yeah.
But the industry is taking such a hit in so many ways that people don't see, like catering or events or whatever. Like Eric from Peach Tortilla, he has Peach Tortilla, he has Bar Peached, but he also has just a team of food trucks that do weddings, they do corporate events, they do all kinds of stuff. That just sat there not doing anything.
His airport property.
The airport, exactly. That had to shut down. He has a huge commissary kitchen. That they do all of their event, prepping and
shit. Yeah.
Or that's just sitting there not doing anything. It's a huge event, and it also is part of a event space.
That place is awesome.
Yeah, Peach Social House.
Yeah, that place is awesome.
But that place sat empty for months, not being. You can't have events. Nobody's having.
Can't have get-togethers. You can't have. Yeah, exactly.
And so there's so many aspects of this that people don't see, that people don't normally think about. And so that's why I really want people to be cognizant of these things is so that they understand, like, just because a restaurant is open doesn't mean it's successful. Doesn't mean that they're not hanging on by the skin of their teeth. Yeah. And at any moment, the $50 that they didn't make that night could be the reason that they close the next day for good.
And think about like pre-pandemic. Look, nobody gets in the food industry going, I'm gonna be rich, right? I didn't get a food truck, right? Like thinking, I'm gonna open a food truck. I want to be rich. No, I love food. I love pleasing people, and I want to, I love being creative and blah blah blah. The money doesn't mean you because profit margins are like this. They're so thin, right? It's so thin. It's nothing. So that's pre-pandemic. That's even if you're busy. Like I've worked for some literally best restaurant in town, best restaurant there, and we literally are losing money every month. And people, how is that possible, Pat? You have a wait every, Friday, Saturday, you're booked, you blah, blah, blah. Dude, you don't have any idea what it takes to get that, to make that happen, right? So now add in a pandemic, dude, forget about it. It doesn't matter who you are. You're struggling right now. I don't care what restaurant you're right. You're struggling.
Yeah, no. And I think that it's that thing where people, I think, are really going to have a big wake up call when, the vaccine finally gets distributed to everybody and everybody takes it and waits and takes the second dose and waits and does all of that. And it's, it's coming up on, the end of spring, beginning of summer, by the time everybody's starting to, get theirs. And I think that, by then you're going to be like, okay, I got the vaccine. I can go out again. I can be around people and not be worried about it. And people are just going to be like, what the hell happened there? It's like, walking outside after a bomb goes off. It's just desolate, And people are going to be like, oh my God, I wanted to go to this restaurant, but they're closed. And I wanted to go to this bar.
Yeah. What happened to this spot? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I can't go see live music at this place anymore because they closed. And there is going to be a reckoning where people are going to just, I think, finally understand what was happening over the last year and a half. And it's going to be sad. There are going to be a lot of people out of work. There are going to be a lot of great restaurants that closed. And I think it's going to be hard for people to find investors who are willing to put money back into that industry after it's been decimated so badly. That's what I think.
That's interesting. One good thing about the restaurant food, the food industry as a whole is, as quickly as one does go down, another one does pop up. Like let's just say pre-pandemic, right? That's usually the case, right? They're constantly coming and going. It's just this, rotating door of places, especially in Texas. I worked in Dallas a long time. I've worked in Austin a long time, and the same thing. They just start popping up. They're just left and right. And People are all about the new thing happening. That's what, especially Dallas. Dallas is all about that. Like, what's the new restaurant, hottest restaurant? So they're hot for 6 months. You know, it'll close after 18. They redesign and, you know, new menu, blah, 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 new chef. So yeah, you know, that's maybe the only thing, that sort of perseverance and that sort of whatever is maybe the only thing that's going to help it. But you're right. There's definitely going to be tentative investors worried about getting in. But again, remember, a lot of people get into not everybody. I mean, you do need to make money, of course. It's a business. But remember, there's still a lot of people that don't do it for the money.
No. And I think that those people are going to be the ones to rebuild.
Yeah.
But I think you're going to see a lot smaller restaurants. There aren't going to be these giant places with huge, dining rooms anymore. It's going to be smaller places, smaller footprint, more food trucks. And honestly, I think a lot of places are going to go kind of that ghost kitchen model that just sort of like exploded over the last, 8 or 9 months.
I've got some feelings about that for sure.
I'm sure you do.
Who doesn't in my industry?
But I think that that's going to be a way for a lot of chefs to test out their concept before, having to go brick and mortar.
What are some of the chefs have you ever talked to any of those chefs about the ghost kitchens? Or what sort of comments do you hear about it? Or have you heard anything about it?
I did an episode that hasn't come out. So I'm sitting on a couple of episodes right now that I haven't finished, only because I got incredibly busy again. Like, for me over the summer, there was no production work happening. So I was just able to focus my time on ReOpen. But once like September hit, things started picking up again. Which is why I've kind of been taking breaks from releasing them, and I'm on a break right now. But I'm not going to name any names right now because I don't want to get me in trouble, but I did interview one restaurant who had to close and went into a ghost kitchen. And
that'll be on an episode coming out next season.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah. This will come out. I'm pretty sure this is going to come out right at the beginning of our new season in 2021.
Okay. Well, maybe they'll be coming out around the same time then.
Yeah.
But yeah, we shot with them, and their experience was initially very good, but they ended up pulling out of the ghost kitchen because they weren't making any money.
Yep.
They weren't able to sustain it.
Yeah, look, here's my quick thoughts on the ghost kitchen, and I've said it on the podcast, I'm a few times, I'm sure, for some of my most loyal listeners that you might have already heard this, but so I actually was going to partner in a commissary kitchen in Austin here with two of my friends who own Pretty Thai, and Max, who is a partner in Jaime's Spanish Village, the salsa. So we were going to open up a kitchen together. It was called RPM, Robert, Patrick, Max, RPM. So on the east side, Springdale General. Well, I ended up pulling out because it was a 10-year deal. I was like, oh man, I honestly just want to get out of food. This was like, I decided I was going to close Boca, and then I pulled out of that. I was like, I'm just done with this industry. I'm going to, attack it from another angle. So anyway, they ended up opening the kitchen, right? They went forward and they opened it. It's called Wingman now. So shout out to the commissary kitchen. First of all, they're doing great during the pandemic, which is crazy. They've actually brought on more people. They've had to turn people away, but not honestly, because a lot of people have had to pivot and do other things. So now they're looking for this kitchen, right, to cook in. But the ghost kitchen idea was something, the whole original idea of we were going to do this was ghost kitchen. Because, Robert and I, like 5 years ago, not that long ago, about 4 years ago, we just, we read an article about someone doing it in Chicago. It was one of the first people to ever do it, this company. And I was like, ooh, this is going to be the future. That's what I originally thought. This will be the future. Because you think of all the benefits, blah, blah, blah. You can switch a menu. There's no brick and mortar. I can, one quick website. I can put 6 concepts, 1 kitchen, Pat's Pizza, Pat's Tacos, Pat's this, whatever. Same crew cooking all the same food. These tomatoes work with all these menu items, right? That sort of thing. But the reality, no, go ahead.
And just to say for consumers as well, it's so beneficial. I know we've got the Kitchen United here in Austin is really close to our house. And for us, like I have my wife, I have an 8-year-old daughter, like some nights we all want to eat something different.
Yeah.
You go on their website and my daughter can get a hot dog because she likes hot dogs. My wife can get chicken strips from this place, and I can get Korean food from this place. Like, it's great. We order, it all comes at once. It's easy, like totally. So for the consumer,
that's a good benefit. You're right. That's a good point. Yeah, exactly. So you start to think, well, this is all great. But in fact, man, Max and I just talked about this at an event this past Tuesday, which will be December for y'all listening to this. So, and it was like, he's like, yeah, man, the ghost kitchen thing, it's just not going to work. And we just got into this long conversation. He just doesn't think it's going to work in the end. I think it will pull through at some point because they'll figure out how to do it right. But just like anything new, right? I don't think it's going to dominate, but I think it will become a part of kitchens, right? It'll just become a part of this industry, for sure. But for those reasons, somebody's going to figure out how to do it just right, how to really maximize that. The only thing from a chef standpoint is quality control. Yeah. So it's great that, your daughter can get chicken fingers and you can get Korean food and your wife can get whatever steak and this, okay, that's great. But are we sure there's no cross contamination, right? In the kitchen, how are we actually doing this, right? Like, is the quality going to be the same? I'm going to have to lower the standards to get you the food out, right? In this way.
When I shot with them in the ghost kitchen, it was a pretty well put together situation. I mean, it was at that Kitchen United, which is where I shot.
Yeah.
And they let us come back and shoot and, kind of see how the whole operation works.
But did you ever see them like really busy?
Yeah.
Okay. That's when a kitchen works well, is when they're fucking slammed. How is it working?
It works. It's tight. And I think that.
Or when they're super slow. That's another good indication of how a kitchen works. One extreme or the other. It's true. It's weird, but
I think that they had it going on. I think that their business model needs to be revisited because I don't think it works for every type of restaurant. And I think that should be the goal of a.
You mean like cuisine? You mean every type of cuisine? Is that okay? I got you.
And I think that should be the goal of a place like that, is that you could open up any restaurant there, and it would work. And I don't think that they're there yet. And they're trying to, everybody's trying to figure it out right now because
it's also name recognition, man. It's also, sometimes people in the food industry, they think, well, if I make it, they'll come and get it. It's not how it works. Totally. You could have the best food. Nobody's coming to your place, right? There's so many examples of bad food still existing. Places have been open forever. How are they still open? Why did this guy close? He makes the best, whatever. Because it's more than just food, and I don't know. It's like, gosh, okay. So I see Pat's Pizza and I see Pat, but who is that? What does that mean? Okay. That's why I think it's just going to take time for people to understand what a ghost kitchen means and understand that name doesn't need to mean anything, but I can trust that these type of places put out good food. Sure. Right. And that's what comes from a brand, right? When you order peach tortilla, when you order whatever, what's behind that. And you don't get that from a ghost kitchen. And that's scary. It's like buying food at the fucking airport food court with shit you don't ever recognize, right? You're like, man, I don't know about that. Let me go over here to that's going to be solid. Like I eat Chick-fil-A at every airport I can because I don't eat Chick-fil-A ever. So every time I'm at airport, I know what it's going to be. Right. I'm not going to screw around. So I don't know that's brainstorming from the restaurant side. Those are the conversations that are, being had, right? How can we bridge that gap and bring that confidence to people as well?
Yeah. It's, I think that unfortunately the pandemic and the resulting inability to go out is going to mean that even when people are able to go out, they've become so used to having stuff delivered through Postmates or Favor or whoever, that part of what's going on now is going to carry over into the post-pandemic world.
Good point.
And so I do think that restaurants are going to find it harder to go back to a dine-in only model, and that a to-go menu is going to become part of just everybody's menu.
That's a good point.
And so I think that ghost kitchens are going to have time to figure it out, because I don't think they're going anywhere. I don't think that the minute the pandemic is over, people are going to be like, well, I don't have to order in anymore. I think ordering in is going to become kind of the new norm. You know?
I think it will as well.
And so it's going to make it harder for front of house. There's not going to be, they're not going to be able, which is why I think, we should just abolish tipping and pay them a fair wage. And,
don't get me started on that. Absolutely. I'm with you. Back of the house, kitchen staff does not get paid nowhere near what they fucking deserve. And then you have that fucking waiter come up to you while you're working a double fryer and you're sweating your ass off, and he has the nerve to walk up to you and be like, oh my God, it's so hot over here. You're just like, he's like, I only made 300 today.
Yeah.
Okay, waiters, this is just call to waiters and bartenders. Don't go flashing your money around to the kitchen. Please don't do that. Don't tell them how much you made. They don't want to hear it, because they work 10 times hard. I'm not saying you don't work hard, because I've had every job in the restaurant, literally every job. Nobody could tell me anything. You just don't get it. You don't get the respect. You don't get the money you deserve. Those people are in there because they love it. That's the truth. They love that. They love, working in there. And yeah, man, they don't get enough credit, or it needs to be split around. I don't, getting rid of tipping in America would be fucking almost impossible, but I'm with you. Look, I worked in Spain. I worked with almost zero tips, really. They do tip a little, but it's like they throw pennies on the fucking table for you. But that tip just needs to, instead of the waiter going, that's all mine, tip pool. It needs to go to every employee, because they all make it happen, right? Okay, waiter, let's take away the cooks. How's that food going to come out? I mean, it's really ass backwards that the tip doesn't go directly to the person making the fucking. I mean, I don't get it. And I waited tables for a long time, and I knew it was a sham. I'm always looking around like, they're going to figure this out one day. I'm not doing shit, and I'm getting all this money. Anyway. Yeah. Or say it to the waiter. Hey, you can do that. You can, hey, give this to the kitchen. You can do that too. So if you want to. Anyway, Christian, I'm sorry. Look, I'll rant on all the bad stuff happening here. But look, support local. That's another big thing, right? Support these local restaurants, support these places as best you can. Or the gift card thing is a great idea. Get the gift cards and stack them away.
If you can, just go online, buy a $50 gift card, buy a $20 gift card. Like,
there you go. There you
spend what you can, and then just tuck it away, put it in a drawer, do whatever. Don't spend it. Just give them that money. Let them.
It's a great idea. That's a great idea.
And if you're going in, like, if you're going in, dude, if you're not tipping at least 25-30%, like, you're a heartless bastard.
Absolutely.
If you're ordering takeout, spread it around. Like, spread the love. Don't order from the same place every night. It's easy to do. I do it sometimes, and then I realize I'm being, selfish, and I need to spread the love. Like, order from different places.
And don't go to Applebee's.
Yeah, don't go to Applebee's.
Fucking hell.
They got plenty of corporate money coming in.
They're the ones that get the big PPP loan. They're the ones. They're fine.
Horrible.
Yes.
Try new places. Like, now's a great time to try new places, because all of these restaurants are putting their best foot forward with their food right now, especially with the to-go stuff, because they know how important it is. Yeah. So if there's a restaurant that you've always thought, oh, we should have tried that place, try them now. Like, get it, just get out there and order in. Not everybody
if you can do pickup would be best. Like avoid the delivery services if you can.
Yes, those delivery services are gouging a lot.
They're gouging. They're 30.
Restaurants are just not making any money on any sale that comes through.
It's a nightmare.
Or Postmates or anything like that. So
yeah, they take up to 30%, guys. I'm going to give you the real figure. Yeah. They'll take over 30% of a sale. So imagine that. That doesn't go to the restaurant. Again, this is something I repeat on the podcast as well. But use Runner City. That's what I promote on the podcast here. Runner City. It's a Facebook group. Thousands and thousands of members and runners, and you set up a deal with them privately to go pick up your food. So the restaurant gets 100% of the whole thing. That's and awesome. you do the delivery right with that person. So you set it up, and there's no set prices or anything. It's you work out the deal and whatever. Right. So that's the best way to support those.
But yeah, hop in your car, run out there. It takes you an extra 10 minutes, and there's
you could still call it in, right? Or order online and
almost everybody's got an online portal right now that they can do it through. Everybody's using Toast Tab, I think, right now.
Yeah.
And it's super easy. If you have a Toast Tab account, then you can just set that up. You don't have to enter in your credit card information every time. You just sign in and do it and pick it up. It's super easy. The restaurant gets all the money. And you're helping keep these places open so that when you are able to dine out later, they'll be there for you.
Absolutely. A city would look very different if you were just to remove food businesses, right? I mean, it wouldn't even be.
It'd be sad.
It would be sad. Yeah. Wouldn't it be a real city? Christian, is there anything we didn't mention or anything? I mean, definitely before we go, I'll have you, just give your website and how people can watch this and connect with you and all that. But is there any topic or any last words you wanted to throw out or say?
I think we covered it. If you're interested in the series, the website is reopendoc.com. And all of the episodes are live on there right now. We're in a lull. We're in kind of a hiatus right now. But I'm hoping.
No, when this comes out, your new season will be coming out.
Yes, that's right.
Or out.
Hopefully.
So yeah,
hopefully at the beginning of 2021, we're going to start releasing some more episodes and shooting some more episodes. I think we're going to try to maybe pivot a little bit about what we're talking about. To start telling stories about individuals within a restaurant. So I really want to talk to some front of house people, some back of house people.
You know, it'd also be cool is maybe one episode where you revisit the people from before. Cause that's what I was thinking when I was watching. Yeah. Damn, I wonder where they're at now because,
and that's something we've been talking about because there's actually like every episode that we shoot is only about 10 to 12, 13 minutes long. But there's hours of content that we didn't get to use. And so we've been talking about trying to make a feature-length documentary that incorporates a lot of the unused stuff as well as follow-ups, maybe going back this summer and doing follow-ups with a lot of these places.
There you go.
And trying to create something larger out of all of that.
100%.
Love
so that's something that's cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. What about your social media?
I'm on Instagram at Christian Remde. Mostly it's just pictures of food.
That's perfect. I mean, that's hello, look, Texas, we're sponsored by Texas Real Food. It's called the Lone Star Plate.
Do it.
We're all about food here. So we're all about pushing that and supporting that. The Lone Star Plate podcast is produced by Texas Real Food. Go to texasrealfood.com and you can search your city for stores, butchers, restaurants, farmers markets, and more who are using fresh, artisanal, organic sources. It's a fun site that brings all natural options all together. I hope you enjoyed this episode. For more information, go to thelonestarplate.com. I'm your host, Patrick Scott Armstrong. Until next time.